Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, well, I guess I'm starting. So I've started. Welcome, everybody. Jody, you have any comments to make?
No, right now we are doing well financially, so
Why is that?
why is that? Because we get our county appropriation paid up front now.
Oh, okay, that makes a difference,
So normally, every year, we're in a deficit until like November.
right?
Now, we're in a positive trend, even though we've had more expenses this past month than income, it is
You
not
got
as
that
critical.
influx
But
of
by the time December 31 comes, it'll catch up.
Yeah.
We're not really any better off if you have some money early.
Right, that's correct.
Okay. Right.
Really nothing unusual, that I'm aware of.
Any questions from anyone regarding the financials? Pretty straight ahead.
Yeah, I think I've said this before, and for me, looking at this is very odd to see the 2023 adopted budget. I don't know what good that does us versus actually having like 2023 actuals, right? To kind of see where we're lining up.
Okay.
But that's just me. I maybe run it by Jeff too. For me, I don't know what good it does to show us the 23 adopted budget.
Okay, we can do that.
I mean, it's fine when you're
So what
setting the new budget,
suggesting is
understand what.
having what it was in 2023 at that time,
Yes.
the actuals, and then the actuals for the year and
Yeah, so year to date, June, the month. And then the adopted. 24 adopted.
So for next
Correct,
month.
yes.
I'll switch, yeah, I'll turn it around.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then the change reflects, what is the change going to reflect?
Well, if you had a change column, essentially, I'd probably do a comparison of 23 actual to 24 actual year to date.
Or is there an opportunity to make that compared to budget?
Or, yeah, I mean, there's no
You know
change
what?
column at all now. So, I mean, if you're looking at that, it's probably what does the committee want, right? Do you want to see it compared to budget, how off budget we are, or how off of
I like knowing the budget numbers,
Yeah.
where we are as compared to budget, you know? I mean, it's nice to know the historical, but moving forward, I always like to know, well, how are we doing
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
our revenues and our expenses compared to budget? It's always interesting to look back a year, but it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
once the
we can get it back. So
Once the
I guess I
2020
would like to see that, but I defer to other people and what they would like to see.
once you January of 2024, then you can do a comparison with the performance of the budget versus, the actual and the adopted. At that point, if we're doing comparison, we should only be comparison with the actual outcome of 2023, not what was budgeted. Because historically, it doesn't make any difference anymore. We've already looked at that. And
Right.
then when you look at year to date, since we're now past the first two quarters, then it makes sense to look at the actual first two quarters of 2023.
Yeah,
Yeah, year to date.
so we're gonna compare actual current budget year. I mean, I don't know. I guess you could keep doing, I don't know how hard it is for you guys to make that change.
No, I don't think it's.
Okay. I guess we'll change that and not tell Jeff.
I think
See
he'll
if
be
he
okay with
notices. See
it.
if he notices, right? Thanks for bringing that up, Cheryl. I've always kind of looked at it and thought, well, that maybe there was some reason for us to do it that way. Okay, any other things that we have to do as part of this committee?
Two things. One is that Tom at the last meeting asked about an appraisal on Richfield Springs. We did get a proposal from CD Richard Ellis, $3,500, which is pretty standard for appraisal. So we'll bring this up at the next board meeting for approval.
I thought at one of the previous meetings, when the Attorney General or whoever was looking at us, or the controller, selling it without an appraisal wasn't a good idea. We were supposed to keep referencing what the market value says it's worth
Right.
before we sell it. So to me, my question was about honoring protocol, just so we have our ducks in a row.
Yeah, and I referenced to him that I wanted appraised for the as built as opposed to what it is right now. Because right now it doesn't have water, sewer, roadway.
Yes, as built, no building, but with services there, yes.
The second thing is that on all these great plans that we have, we'll talk about also under projects. There is no point that a surveyor can lock into on these drawings.
I don't know what that means.
Well, what it is that normally they have a geothermal or geothermal because
Yeah.
another issue with
A
Richmond.
geolocation.
Yeah, location markers. There are none on the site. And so to tie the plans in, Joe hired a surveyor to go out and stake out the project. So that they're ensuring that they're on the property lines, they know where the wetlands are, that they coincide with what's on the drawings. And they claim that they can't do it without having those markers. Everybody reached back to Keystone saying, why can't you do this? And they said, well, we don't do surveying. So after 3 days of bickering between everybody, I called Larson Engineering, who did the original surveys, and they said for $1,900 they can put 4 markers on the property. So I authorized them to go ahead and do that. They'll be up next week to put the markers in, and then the following week, and Joe's will start staking out the surveys for construction.
Let me just ask,
Needed for her financing and everything else properly surveyed and everything
Yeah,
else.
and I didn't want to wait another 2 weeks to bring it before the.
But I don't think Mason and Dixon had them when they were surveying the line, but go ahead.
what I don't understand, and I know it was, like 3 centuries ago, when you do a survey, whether it's commercial or residential, you stake the property. And so Larson, at this point, it's moot, but Larson should go back for free and put the stakes in that they should have put in when they originally did the survey. And it's like I had the same issue when we surveyed our property. It was a subdivision. I was looking for the survey markers. I couldn't find them. I called up the surveyor, and he goes, "Oh my God, I think I didn't put them in." Well, he immediately came back,
and did it, yeah.
put them in, and didn't charge me a dime. So, but anyway, just my thought. Moving forward.
Yes.
So that's all I have on finance.
Okay.
Okay.
Jody, just a quick question. Did Jeff get back to you on the 4-year budget revision?
Sorry?
Did you hear back from Jeff at all on the 4-year budget revisions that you provided?
I haven't heard back from Jeff at all on what I sent him on the 4-year budget.
So I don't know if it's conversation for this group here. I really want to get going with the posting for the economic director. And we're just kind of making sure we're feeling comfortable from a financial perspective. I don't really want to wait another month.
What I did was, when you read the projects committee, my director's report, I reached out to Hans, and he gave me all this verbiage about why it's difficult to hire somebody like that and this and that. And he's too busy to do it, so I sent the job announcement to the New York State Economic Development Council, and they're gonna post it next week.
Okay, so we're already moving forward. Okay.
Yes.
So
I
back
just-
to your question, then it's not reflected in the budget? The personnel reflected in the budget does not include that position?
So it doesn't this year. We have the marketing and innovation director is in the budget. And Jeff we done what I had Jody doing was 4-year forecasts to see
Yeah.
operationally could we afford
Gotcha.
the new position.
Sure.
And there was some assumptions that Jeff wanted to look at slightly differently. So that was just the piece. I think the original budget revision, the 4-year projections, we were comfortable. The new revisions are very conservative, as you can imagine. So it peels back
Sure.
a lot of some of those assumptions that operationally do put us a bit in a bind, I would say, with both positions being hired at a higher rate of salary.
Right, and
Maybe
when
under the benefits.
we put together the budget back in, because we have to do it by October, the end of
Right.
October.
Mhm. Yep.
There was no discussion about hiring an economic
Right.
development director, so we didn't budget for that. there is enough money in this year's budget to pay for half that salary.
Uh-huh,
And for the 4-year plan that I gave to Cheryl and to Jeff, it's budgeted out right now.
right. And there are some positions that were vacant, correct,
That's
in
correct.
this year, so that's why you're saying that. It makes sense to do.
I have a related question. Going back to, our discussion on CD investments and cash flow and expenses, I noticed we have a really robust, balance in our checking account. And I'm assuming that that's still there because of that previous discussion, the fact that we have upcoming expenses to pay for Richfield Springs. Does that explain that, Jody, pretty much?
The timeline is slipped a little bit, but it actually gives us more of a cushion.
Okay.
Because the CDs will come up
Yeah, they should be coming up soon.
soon, so
Yeah.
we can actually not renew them and put them into cash.
Great. Answers my question. Thanks.
Anything else with finance? Anything? Okay, great. Projects?
Okay, here we go, project committee meeting, chair doesn't have any comment. Jody, review project tracker, what's progress do we have to celebrate?
Well, I did speak to Rich Brimmer, and he indicated, as I said, that 2 of the 4 graders that they have are broken down, and they're probably not going to repair them. And highway crews are working on bridge work right now. They do expect within the month that they'll get to repaving Roundhouse Road on our behalf.
No, we planning to rip that puppy up and kind of tamp down the base so the potholes don't come back up?
Yes, what they're planning on doing is regrading it. They'll be putting in probably 3 culverts, they said, as well as then they'll use a base layer of the recycled asphalt, and then they'll come in with 2 to 4 inches of hard
Base.
asphalt on top of that.
We don't yet have an estimate, is that correct?
About $200,000. But if we went to design on it, it would cost us $200,000. So it's a real bargain to have the county do it.
What else do we have on? Railroad Avenue or Pony Farm?
Richfield Springs, the administrative law judge ruled that, my amended petition, we move ahead, that he saw no problem with the petition. The, last month I reported that we're having trouble getting operational costs for the operation of the water systems. And again, it gets back to the engineers trying to figure out, talking to the water superintendent and the wastewater superintendent. And I said, why don't you just, and so I reached out to the village treasurer and she gave me those numbers, which was a lot simpler than trying to get a wastewater person to figure out what they spent. So those are done. They were sent to all parties. We received a building permit from the county. We received the DOT permit that took 7 months to get. We explained that we hired Lawson to put in the vertical controls surveys, and we did receive approval from EDA to commence construction. So
So we're not sure when we're gonna start, you said maybe next week, but by snow we'll be,
next week they'll have the markers installed, and probably the following week they're going to go in and start staking out everything. When I wrote this, Larry still was having problems with the village. I got a phone message from him last night saying that they've come to an agreement with the village and are moving ahead with that fairly soon.
Great.
And then the last thing is that Senator Oberacker, just to follow up, to make sure this project, there is no problem between the village and the town, he called a special meeting for 2 weeks from today. at 10 o'clock in Richfield Springs.
Is that to make sure there's no problems or to announce we're going forward? I mean, that's the meeting to make sure we're okay,
They're
talking to each other? or-
They're trying to, the village and the town are trying to iron out any problems before that meeting. Other items are that we did get a time extension from the Office of Community Renewal for IOX's project. And we're working on the third drawdown right now. We should have this project completed by October, November. Megan's running the micro enterprise grant program, and she awarded 5 grants,
Well, I gave the first check to 5 of the business.
5 new businesses.
But we're not deciding, we're just doing administrative work,
Yeah, and those were already awarded,
Yeah.
so we're just doing the work.
just clean up.
Yeah.
We did get a signed, final application from the Vecino,
Vecino,
pursuing the housing development in Cooperstown. There's a section on our application where we have to calculate what benefits that we're giving out, and we ran the numbers, and we recalculated what the pilot would provide as a real property tax break for them. And so they use that number to confirm that the calculations I did and put that into their application. That was the missing piece. We sent those on to Joe Scott and Chris at Hotchkiss and Russ, and I'm waiting to hear back from them.
Do they foresee any issue with that project based on our conversation with Joe and Chris at our last meeting? That's gonna fit well within the guidelines?
The guidelines that we had adopted about 3 years ago, they would fit into those recommended chart. I'm reviewing that chart now. We may make some minor adjustments on it. And I'm also researching what at least 5 or 6 other counties are doing as far as housing, and how they're going about it.
Yeah, because didn't they mention that Albany County may be the most active IDA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we may have to make an amendment to our mission statement to include housing.
I think the way that they phrased it is having people downtown walking, buying, and a part of things. And you can see the difference I was just in Albany, downtown Albany, the day before, and you see many more people walking around. So, I mean, I think that's the indicator. I think the Vecino project is right downtown, contiguous with,
Yes.
you know.
Do you want to do a casino now?
And
Yeah, let me just, casino with Vecino. Let's start that rumor. God.
And that's how we've taken it, the tradition in the past. That's why we did Springbrook downtown. That's why
Right.
we did Chestnut Crossings.
And is that reflected in our verbiage currently?
It's not
Okay.
reflected, but it's reflected in our chart and the policies we adopted on deviations from standard pilots.
So is it something we should review at the board meeting and maybe update?
That's probably a good idea.
Well, we should, something we should do, we should get it done.
Jody, can I just ask what the purpose would be to change the mission statement for it? I mean, it's in our policies, it's in what the purpose or value would be to change the mission statement.
I guess my question was, is it in there? And I was hearing something different that it wasn't.
Yeah,
Isn't that what you're
Well,
saying?
housing isn't specifically in the mission statement, but it's in our policies, right? It's in. So I don't know that your mission statement needs to cover every economic development activity that you participate in, but I understand from a regulation standpoint, there might be something that I'm missing or not understanding there.
You know, when we did the other 2 housing projects, that was the basis of adopting that deviation policy for housing. So I'm not sure that we do need it in our mission statement.
okay, like, that if we need to do it, we should do it. If we don't need to do it, move on, let's do
Yeah,
something.
I don't need to.
Let's go get something done.
That's kind of a Joe Chris decision, isn't it? Whether they recommend we need to change it, that's one thing. If they don't, then we're okay.
Okay.
I would
Kind of what we did
think.
together At the last meeting. They said as long as your mission aligns with that, then you can, I mean, I wasn't at that meeting, but when I watched it back, that was what I got out of it.
Yeah, that's,
So maybe that's where you're getting that from.
Yeah, I think their other message
is
was
it
that
aligned? That's
they
all.
need
Yeah.
to be completely involved in every housing project and so that the paperwork, based on the disparity between what the governor's saying and what the general municipal law has said for years, that they just, if they're there reviewing, the progress and the paperwork, we should be in good shape. That's the message I got, so.
Mhm.
So Jody, I'll leave it to you to decide if you feel you need to change the mission, just let me know. We'll put that into the goal check-in to get that done. Currently the mission statement basically is just we support projects in the county that create or retain jobs and promote investment, right? So
That
don't know
sounds
that-
like it covers everything.
yeah, I don't know that we need to get so specific on certain
Nope.
activities.
Think of this, we're still the Industrial Development Agency.
Right.
So our title is absolutely inaccurate. So moving forward, right?
So we changing it? Is that what you're suggesting?
Hey, no, stop. Jody, anything else for us?
As we discussed in prior meetings, we were looking at benefit packages, for employees to retain and keep them here. And so I met with, Jason Talbert, who actually is in this building. He has offices here. He's a financial advisor with Allied Financials. We reviewed a simple IRA, a 401k, and a simplified employee pension plan. He's recommending the third one, so that the administrative costs would be a lot cheaper. He says for a large company, it makes sense to do a 401k because the administrative fees, the forms they have to fill out for the federal government is more manageable for larger companies because it's spread over a number of employees, whereas here you have basically 3 people that are doing this on the administrative. But he's going to do an analysis based on all the salaries I gave him and come back with a spreadsheet showing the differences. I also I spoke with Han Delmolden, who's with Volante, Ritson and Company. They were the firm that you guys hired 6 years ago when you looked at hiring me. He's indicating that he's too busy. He's got 2 clients right now, and he's got 2 coming up on the books to do this. He suggested just right now for us to go out and advertise it, because he said other firms aren't like his. They'll just basically do the same thing, run an ad, and not do a real search. And he thinks it would be a waste of money to go out and hire somebody. He also says that a lot of the applicants that you're going to get on a search like this are people who work at the colleges that want to move on, that think they know economic development, chamber of commerce people, and they really don't have the experience that's needed for this type of employment. So he recommended, and I talked to him about sending it to the New York State Economic Development Council, which I did, and they're gonna, they have probably about 20 different listings of jobs for people in New York State looking for positions like this. Megan attended the 2024 Economic Development course. You want to talk about that at all?
It was fun, I guess. It was in Albany, so we had to drive to Albany every day. Yeah, listen to my podcasts. Yeah, I don't know what else really to say about it. Bunch of different courses held by IDA directors and motivational speakers. There was a motivational speaker there, and then we did a case study on the last day. It was good. So if I ever feel like becoming a certified economic developer, that's the first step.
And as I indicated, Megan is running our microenterprise grant program. The reports are listed on the. She's been doing a really good job on handling that on our behalf, on behalf of the county. She's got a review committee that reviews all the applications, takes them to the county board, the administrative committee or the IGA committee.
It's both.
And then.
I'm on the full board.
So the county board is starting to recognize Megan quite a And that's really all I have.
The IRS thing.
I should have brought that up under finance, but we did get a notice from the IRS
Mm.
that we owe $10,833.99. I called them, they actually had identified a person that I could speak to at the IRS. And she called me back within 5 minutes, which is unbelievable.
It is
And she says it has to do that we owe money to
ISD,
ISD.
but we don't, though. Well, so in doing this, I looked into QuickBooks and they hadn't sent us an invoice since March. And so I called them and she said, oh, well, we've been sending them to Nasim. Well, Nasim was here in March. I went through Nasim's emails. She had no emails from ISD. So then they said it was something wrong with their automated system. So they ended up sending the bills that we owe, but it's really just our monthly email, which is like $73 a month. So that's not $10,000.
So why would the IRS be collecting some other vendors' money? I mean,
All I can think of is that they reported a loss in revenues from a client to the IRS. They would have said, well, we lost money, so we're not paying as much tax.
so why would I owe that money?
I don't know. So the woman I talked to just said, well, if you don't owe them any money, just say no funds and sign it and send it back. You're done. And I'm like, well, before I do that, I want to make sure. So that's why I had Megan check me out with.
So I reached out to ISD again yesterday because they have a corporate office and they said their corporate office was looking into it. And she said that she was meeting with her accountant yesterday and she'd let me know. And she never sent me an email, so I will reach out to them again today. It's just really weird.
What was
Yeah.
the mention of a property lien? That's what was bizarre to me.
That's what they indicated.
The IRS?
Yes.
And what property would that be? If they're gonna put a property lien on the rail yards?
It basically says, this is not a bill for taxes you owe. This is a notice of a levy we are using to collect money owed by the taxpayer named above.
Which is
Okay.
also ISD.
Which is
Us.
ISD.
It's ISD.
Okay.
Supposedly we owe money to them.
No. ISD owes the government money and they're trying us to contribute to that. Is that, I mean, if it was a taxable portion of something, the whole it was $10,000, the whole project would have to be like 50.
Right.
I mean, right? I mean, it's illogical. Yeah,
So ISD owes the money.
well,
I guess, and then we owe ISD money, we don't really know. That's what the IRS told him.
it seems crazy.
So we'll resolve it.
Yeah, we're working on it.
I mean, we got a notice last year that we owed, I forgot what it was for, unemployment insurance or something like that. And it took me 6 months to deal with the IRS and they finally said we don't owe anything.
Anything else, Jody?
No, that's
I had
it.
a couple of questions, Tom.
Yeah,
Jody, can you tell me about the status of the Delaware River Solar and New Leaf Energy? What's going on with those two groups?
Right now, the county sent back letters to all of those groups and said, we, in October of last year, opted out of this program. And so technically would be charged full taxes on it. And all pilot agreements are negotiated by the IDA and they gave them our address and name. We haven't heard anything back from them yet.
Okay, great. The other one was we had a conversation about the Ioxis, the paving by their loading dock. And I think we suggested that we would do concrete rather than asphalt. Can you just tell me the status on where that is?
I haven't gotten back to them yet on that.
Okay, because we were gonna, correct me if I'm wrong, we were gonna look for a couple other bids, correct?
Right, we're gonna look for two comparable bids for somebody to do concrete.
Holland Group rail yard sale, any feedback from them?
No. I sent them an email 2 weeks ago and said, listen, we're getting ready to repave Roundhouse Road. Are you interested or not? And haven't heard back from them. So that's why we made the decision to move ahead and pave around House Road.
The last thing is this, as it was mentioned to me, sale of 50-foot wide or 60-foot wide, whatever it is, to Ed May. On the one lot that's been cleared, that we needed to have a survey.
Yes.
Yeah,
I went down and met with the assessor, the appraiser that did the original, survey.
Yeah.
He's out of Sydney. I went down and met with him last week and a half ago. His only concern on the maps that he generated was somewhere he came up with a wetland where that 50-foot right of way was submitted, that Ed is looking to do. And I indicated that we had paid for another company to do a wetland delineation, and nothing on that side of the road was listed as a wetland. So on Monday, I sent him copies of the MRB plan that shows where the wetlands are, as well as a link to our webpage that gives him access to the wetland delineation report done by Delaware Engineering. That shows that there is no wetland on that property. So that he wanted some documentation to clear him to allow them to subdivide that off and use it as fill.
okay, that answers my questions, thanks.
Yeah.
And I just had a question on the Route 28 corridor ED planning. Is that something that's new? I feel like we've already done a study on, not we, but the county did a study on the 28 corridor. Curious if this is just a refresh, a new group of people coming together. What's happening with that?
I'm going deaf.
The Route 28 corridor.
Oh,
Is that
the
a,
Route 28 corridor group. This was a group started by SUNY Oneonta. They originally they wanted to do an economic development corridor study from Oneonta up to the county line in Richfield Springs. It's primarily because they live up there. I was asked by the county administrator to start sitting in on these meetings, and both the county administrator and myself said, what about a corridor study along 88? I mean, that seems to tie in what Binghamton is working on in their center, the battery centers, all the way to our sites. They are reluctant to do that. They claim that there's more of a potential for housing development along the 28 corridor. So right now I'm just kind of sitting in on the meetings and offering some advice. The SUNY Oneonta is actually going to do their study. We're just providing some input, I guess. I'm not sure it's really going to develop into anything too meaningful.
Okay. I just feel like we do so many studies and it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, I know.
So we're not doing it.
Maybe we
So
should do a
it's-
study on how many
You're sitting
studies.
in on the discussions. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention something. It's not particularly projects, but if you notice this, the Star put out their annual graduation class edition. If you looked at it, what was incredible to me is that among the Class D schools, I think there was only one of them graduating more than 30 kids.
Yep.
So, if anybody questions whether we need some economic development, just take a look at the numbers of graduates at some of these area schools, how low they are at this particular point in time. Really kind of.
It's scary. Dave,
Yeah.
I did the same thing that you did in looking at it.
Yeah.
It was scary.
Yeah, even Oneonta was like at 103.
Yeah.
And in 1970, 71, 72, and then it was 300.
Follow that by the information that came out, I think, in the Times of the per pupil cost for education. And the per pupil it's frightening.
Yeah, of course, they use Long Lake. The
Yeah.
schools that graduate 7 people, but the geography is such that the distance to send those kids someplace else is, you just can't put kids on a bus that long. Incredibly wealthy district as far as land wealth. So they can spend what they need to spend to educate, graduating classes of 7, but the per pupil cost is just out of this world, and I think they showed Andy's is in the same boat. Andy's graduated
Andy's.
4
And
kids.
that doesn't, yeah.
Yeah,
It's just, it's cause for concern if you're a school superintendent.
Well, not to chase a rabbit, but when the state is not encouraging economic development, i.e. voting positively on energy supply for an area to have some activity, this is the results of that. And if you don't if we don't address the energy supply, we will get more of the shrinkage. It just, it's baked in, and we'll do all the economic development we can do without energy, which has been there.
Absolutely
So
agree.
if we really want healthy communities, we gotta look at our energy policy.
Totally agree.
Don't like it, but.
Yeah.
Anything else, Jody?
No.
Nothing else? Call this meeting over.
Over.
Thanks,
have a great
everybody.
weekend, everybody.
We have our main campus program.
See you, Andy.